Hello, welcome back to the Ether Keep. I'm Levinsetti, no tricks today, and I want to talk to you about how Fire Emblem Heroes is slowly but surely becoming literally unplayable. And I do sort of mean that actually unplayable, not just a commentary on the state of the game, but the game is becoming complex to a point where understanding it is nearly impossible, and it is becoming challenging to play in ways that I do not think are intended. What am I talking about? I have an example I built right here to show you, so let's do it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, first thing I want to talk about here is the Schism effect. We're going to read right here what Schism does. It neutralizes triangle attack, dual strike, and pathfinder effects that are active on a unit through that unit's next action. It also excludes any unit with this status effect from counting toward triangle attack and dual strike effect. So that means that if a unit has this and dual strike and they're next to someone else who has dual strike, they don't count as the buddy to get the brave effect off, right? If this is on a unit, they are essentially not having dual strike at all. So we're gonna take a look at this. But it also says that when this status, Schism, is neutralized, triangle attack, dual strike, and pathfinder effects are also neutralized. So I interpret that to mean when status is cleared, they lose Schism and they lose the brave effect, the triangle attack effect, dual strike effect at the same time. So when this is active, it's like they don't have it, and when this is gone, they lose the status, right? Let's see it in action. In fact, let's put dual strike onto this Celica. And at the same time, we'll be putting it on this Triandro. It doesn't really matter because there's still units over here who will have the effect.
What's next?
And let's just see what happens here. So Celica rallies, gets danced, is next to two units who have dual strike, and she attacks once. You could even see there she lost some status effects after the dance. So the dance cleared her, and she lost her status effects. Which makes sense. I think that is in line with the way the skill reads. I would like to show you one more example. We're going to use the same team, and this time what we're going to do is we are going to put Schism on every unit except for Celica, which, if you read the effect, should have the same effect. If putting Schism on a unit takes away the effect of dual strike, then putting it on every unit except for one should make it impossible for the brave effect to come out. By the way the skill is written, because even if the status is cleared, it should clear dual strike with it. I want to submit to you. Well, no, we'll talk about that after we see what happens.
Do not waver.
So we get those units.
Ready when you are.
We put Dimitri in range. We dance
Let us go.
Lumera, and we get Schism on every other unit. So yes, all of these units have Schism. You can see it here, but Celica does not. So now let's see what happens when I press end turn. Celica rallies again. Jump. And she hits the brave effect and actually takes down Dimitri with it. What is going on? What is happening? And we can see here, she does in fact, she has it, but we can also see that Embla has it too! What's going on here? What's going on here is that in Embla's C skill, she has this effect. At start of turn, if a foe is within 3 rows or 3 columns centered on unit, neutralizes any penalty, excluding penalties inflicted at start of turn, and grants dodge to unit. So this is, what we're seeing is that a cleanse by dance, a cleanse by turn ending, and by turn ending, does clear triangle attack, and dual strike, and all these statuses it's supposed to. We saw that when Celica had Schism. But what we're seeing here is that Embla, who has a built-in actual cleanse effect, similar to like Odd Recovery or something, I believe, I'm not 100% sure on that, I didn't test it with that, but this cleanses Schism without cleansing dual strike with it. And from the way that the Schism effect is written, I actually don't think it's possible to know that the interaction is going to happen that way. And I didn't record this, but I did lose an offense match to this once a few weeks ago. I didn't record it because I thought it was going to be non-content. I thought it was free to tank, but I did not expect to see a legendary Celica, actually, which is why I'm using her as the example. I did not expect to see her do that because, by the way the skill is written, it shouldn't. I don't think that's right. What are we looking at? Ruse. Schism. When this status is neutralized, Triangle Attack, Dual Strike, and Pathfinder effects are also neutralized. And what's the wording on Embla? Neutralizes any penalty! So the wording is exactly the same, but the skill doesn't do what it says it does. So I don't know if this is a translation issue or what, but I think it may very well be the worst written skill in the entire game of Fire Emblem Heroes, which is not an uncontested title. Now, I have another example of this that I would like to share with you. Now, just give me 1 second, because I'm experimenting with new technology to do this. But, cool. We have this. So this is a replay you might remember. If you watch my defense recap, this is a replay that happened a few weeks ago, where I built a team that was designed around using Igrin and Citran to spread the ignore difficult terrain effect, so that we could jump scare people with Gullveig. And this was the one match where someone specifically didn't respect Gullveig's range. You can see my range increase, and Gullveig doesn't attack.
I'm here for you.
Now this is an interaction that I honestly never even considered the possibility that it might not work that way. I didn't even think that was something I would have to test, because Prom was in range and outside of the safety fence. It stands to reason, it stands to business, that she should smack him. But she doesn't, and this one, I think this one is less egregious than what I just showed you, but I still think that it is nearly impossible to understand without seeing it happen. Like, I don't think it's something that is obvious that you should have to check, and I don't think that it's really clear from the wording that this is the way the interaction will play out. So we don't really need to see the rest of this, we don't really need to see the rest of this match play out. It's mostly just that one moment. But now we can come back to here, and let's see. Let's just take a look at the units involved. So let's look at, it's really Citran we're looking at, right? Because if Gullveig got that status at the start of turn at the same time as the other effects, it would work normally. But it's because of the involvement of Citran, and Citran has this very interesting wording in her weapon that goes like this. After start of turn skills trigger, if unit's HP is over 25%, grants any bonus effects active on unit, including stat bonuses, excluding extra movement and Pathfinder, to allies within 2 spaces of unit for 1 turn. It's that after start of turn skills trigger thing that is sort of the kicker here. But if we go ahead and look at the safety fence, it says after skill activation at start of defensive turn. It's not the same wording. And so I don't think it makes sense to interpret them as happening at the same time, but it's not clear what the priority is there. Or maybe it would make sense to interpret them as happening at the same time, and in that case, if you interpret them as happening at the same time, which I think is a very fair read on this situation, then it's kind of a gamble on if it would work or not. In any other way of reading it, I mean, you're either right or you're wrong, it's just not clear. So right here are 2 skill interactions that I simply think are impossible to understand without having seen. Like, no matter how much you read, no matter how much you understand of the game, I just don't think it's possible to predict the outcomes of these 2 situations. And these are 2 situations that I've personally lost matches to, so they seem like niche edge cases, but they are very real. And as the game is growing more and more complex, I feel like this is going to be more and more of a problem. It's sort of a separate issue, but I want to talk about just like the amount of text that's being added to skills these days. I'll be out of here real quick. Don't you worry, I'm going to make this quick. I mean, I feel like the obvious donk here is to just pick something like, golly gosh, where are you? I think the easy point to make here is to pick something like this refine, where the text keeps going and keeps on going, and then there's more, and then there's even more, and that's how much text there is. But half of this is just explaining what Canto +1 is, right? And that's not that difficult to glean. The rest of these are it's a lot of words, but it's pretty easy to understand most of them, and some of them you can skip over, like understanding how the beast transformation effects work. I am more interested in talking about something like, in particular, the skill I've found recently that came out that I did not understand for a long time fully. I understood from seeing it in action and from playing with it, but I didn't understand it from the words, was Potent 4, because it has this much text. And to me, the thing that I found hard to process was that it specifically says that the Potent Follow occurs immediately after unit's standard follow-up attack. And I understood that you get a Potent follow-up attack that is non-interactive with null follow-up because it has the whole changing the speed differential thing. But what was not clear to me was that if unit cannot make a follow-up attack, this effect occurs when the standard follow-up attack would occur. Which, to me, is probably the most important detail in this whole skill, right? The thing that makes Potent follow-up attack so strong is that it actually is a way to get a follow-up, ignoring the normal rules of the game and ignoring the effects of null follow-up on units who otherwise would not be able to get one, and that's why it makes Ivy so strong, because she gets to act like a much faster unit while having her skills and stats distributed in a way that don't prioritize speed as heavily. It's really strong. But this super important detail is hidden in, like, the footnotes of this skill, and it was a skill that I had to learn by playing into, not by understanding the important effects from reading it, because there's so much bloat in the wording and so much obscured by the like, look at how long this parenthetical is at the end. I look at this and I just tune it out, because it's like, this effect is a follow-up attack, so effects that reduce blah 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 blah. Like, there's so many things in there that I don't need to read. It's so easy to ignore. And finally, I just want to also talk about Lagu's friend, because again, there's this much text. And most of what it's saying is actually pretty easy to understand, but the way it's presented makes it way harder than it needs to be. What this skill does is give you attack -5 on the enemy, special jump at an opportune moment to get special jump for an enemy phase unit. It requires either a defensive special or a high cooldown offensive special, and it gives you DR piercing on the relevant hit, and true damage and damage reduction. It's not a hugely difficult thing to understand, but because the way the game is set up, it requires so many words that just are not easy to parse, and there's a bunch of information in it that is irrelevant half the time, no matter what. Like, to every unit, only half of these effects are relevant at any time, because they have to be written separately for offensive and defensive specials. And just to, again, put into context of how this does actually affect the game, I got a replay already where, oh, was it this one? Someone came in with an Ike, running Lagu's Friend 4, with Great Ether, and the Marth emblem bringing him down to 2 cooldown. Which means that Lagu's Friend 4 gets turned off. And it does weirdly feel to me like it's not a mistake by the player, it's a mistake by IS for just not having any way of really making that super clear. There's so much text here, it's really easy to ignore that detail, and there should be something in the game that makes it a little bit simpler to understand. Anyway, that's just what I wanted to talk about. I think complexity creep has become the real issue, even more so than power creep. Power creep is just what the game is now, but complexity creep makes it impossible to understand, play with, and counter the power that's been added, and that is really a problem. That is where the game becomes unplayable, not just unfun or poorly designed, but like actually kind of unplayable. Like, imagine playing Monopoly without any text that explained to you what the dice did. How do you move? Very unclear. And of course it's not that bad, but it's like, if it didn't tell you how to buy property or what the bank was, like, it's issues like this that are just not setting the game up for success. That's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for listening through. If you're still here, you're a real one, and you should really press the subscribe button, because apparently you like what I'm putting out. Okay, I'll be back with more FEH content soon. Let me know if you like this format, this kind of talk, and hope you have a great day. More FEH content coming, like, probably on Monday, like I always do. So till then.